On this week's episode of the Best of Johnston County podcast, we're having a special edition episode that we call Ask Jonathan Breeden Anything. And in this episode, I answer questions about, does one single fact that the attorney not know change the outcome? Should you follow court orders? And what happens if you don't follow a court order? And whether co-parenting can get better or does it always get worse between two parents? If you're interested in the answer to these questions, as I see it after doing this for 26 years, listen in.
Welcome to another episode of Best of Johnston County, brought to you by Breeden Law Office. Our host, Jonathan Breeden, an experienced family lawyer with a deep connection to the community, is ready to take you on a journey through the area that he has called home for over 20 years. Whether it's a deep dive into the love locals have for the county or unraveling the complexities of family law, Best of Johnston County presents an authentic slice of this unique community.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Best of Johnston County podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden. And on today's episode, we're doing a special edition episode we like to call Ask Jonathan Breeden Anything, where our social media coordinator, Raina Birch, asks me, Jonathan Breeden, varying family law questions. And this one is going to be sort of real world stories that I have seen in 26 years of practicing family law and how they have affected the outcome and why it is very important to tell your attorney the truth. But normally on this podcast, I, Jonathan Breeden, interview interested community members, leaders, small business owners about what they love about Johnston County and the services that they provide to the citizens of Johnston County. But every once in a while, we do these special episodes that we call Ask Jonathan Breeden Anything, and that's what this podcast is going to be about. But we would like to ask you to like, follow, subscribe to this podcast wherever you see it, whether it be on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, X, LinkedIn, or any of the other social media channels of the Best Johnston County podcast. The Best Johnston County podcast comes out every single Monday and has now for over 2.5 years. So go back and listen to some of the previous episodes. We've had the vast majority of the county commissioners. We had now Congressman Brad Knott. We've had County Economic Development Director Chris Johnston. We've had the Parks and Rec Director twice. So if you love Johnston County as much as I do, this is the podcast for you. Welcome, Raina.
Welcome, Jonathan. Are you ready?
I guess. I never really know what these questions are going to be before we start, but we'll see how I do.
I know. My theory is every good lawyer has good stories.
Well, I've got a few.
I figured you did. All right. So the first question, a newer topic, especially in the legal sense, is social media, right? There's not a lot of statutes or anything on that at the moment. So the question is, does it really come up in court? Does social media really come up in court?
Yes, all the time.
Okay.
Almost every single contested hearing, there's something about social media being introduced as evidence. And it's not for the positive. It's mainly for the negative. And the things that you see that are negative on social media is you have one party out there blasting the other party.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Saying that they're a horrible person and calling them profanity and insulting their family members. And if they would have, oftentimes these relationships break up because somebody cheated. They have something to say about who they cheated with.
Yep.
And it's not good. And particularly if you have kids who are old enough who have access to social media, and the age for that is a whole nother debate. But there's a lot of kids that have access to social media at a fairly young age that then see this. And while you didn't say it to the child, it's out there and it can be seen and it can be shared with the child. The child can see it. And so that is the problem. And nothing good is coming out of telling the world about how horrible your ex is. Like, what are you trying to get? Pity? You want people to say, oh, we're so sorry for you. What does that accomplish, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's what we see. It also can show people out partying and drinking and you know, hanging out with a lot of different people. Some of those people might not be the best people to be hanging out with, particularly if they have criminal records or they're on the sex offender registry and stuff like that. And so, you know, that's not great either.
No.
When you're trying to show yourself to be a stable parent and in the best interest of the child, and then I'm holding pictures of you drunk out of your mind, doing keg stands with a sex offender in the background, right? Like, I mean, this happens.
Yeah, oh,
Like,
yeah.
I wish it didn't, but it does. And so, then the court's going to be like, okay, is this person really a responsible parent? Are
Yeah.
they really the best parent for this child if this is what they're doing? And they're voluntarily sharing, right? Or who tags you, right? Like,
Yeah,
you got to
that's a
be
big
real
one.
careful about that, right?
Mhm.
So I think that's because the other thing is, if you're out there on social media telling the whole world, people you don't even know, how bad the other party is, the court is going to presume that you're telling the child how bad the other party is. And that is terrible for the child. It's like stabbing the child in the heart, because that child is half the other parties, and they care more about you and the other party than anybody else in this world, no matter how much you hate the other party. And so that also goes in to how judges make decisions. So you got to be real careful about what is out there on social media. But yeah, we're using it in almost every single contested hearing, not for the positive, but for the negative against somebody.
Yeah. Okay. And so is there any platform that's like more that you see more often than most, or is it kind of just, it runs the gambit?
I mean, we see Facebook, you know what I mean? I mean, there's not as much writing on Instagram.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People don't really use X anymore. It's Twitter. It's kind of gone away. Yeah. So we see a lot of Facebook. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Snapchat kind of comes and goes. Maybe somebody, but it's not ever gone, right? Like, somebody could have captured it before it went away. Like it's making a video with their phone.
I was about to say,
right.
yeah.
But, like there's that. You got to be very, very careful about that. And there's other chat things out there. Yeah. We had one the other day where somebody felt like they were being threatened, by this rant against the other party, and everybody's gonna pay for what they did to this person.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think they intended any harm. They're just mad.
Yeah.
But it is.
It just depends on how you take it.
How you take it, correct?
Yeah. Okay. And so, have you ever had a case or seen a case where one small detail changed everything?
Yeah. I mean, we've had a lot of those cases, particularly ones we didn't know about.
Yeah, that's bad.
Right. One that comes to mind from a few years ago was a custody case where the mother's new husband had a past and was moving on from that past and was doing great and was doing everything you would ask somebody to do. But what we did not know was that the mother's husband and other people had been recreationally using drugs, not even serious drugs, like marijuana, which everybody thinks, is legal in a bunch of states, together. And this came out in the trial that, it was one of the dad's family members. Everybody was friends, people in this one largely got along until they didn't. And they came and they talked about what they saw. Nobody harmed, but it was enough. I think it turned the whole case.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, things happen. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I mean, people do things that they're not proud of, but not telling your attorney so they can prepare can put you in a real spot.
Yes.
And, if the attorney knows, they can prepare for it. They can try to mitigate it. They can develop a strategy around it.
Yep.
But if they don't know, and you're in a live fire situation in a courtroom where a trial is going on, and the trier of fact is sitting right there listening to every word, then it becomes very difficult. And some things can't be mitigated, but some things can be with other witnesses and other character and that kind of stuff. So, there's been, every case you do, something is going to come out that you don't know about. Yeah. And you're going to look at your client and, but not, that doesn't always turn the case. Yeah. But sometimes it does. Yeah. And depending on what it is.
Exactly.
And, and that does happen. So you're right. Yes, we have seen one or two things that we didn't know anything about turn an entire case. If they're substantial enough and they go to the best interest of the child and what's in the welfare of the child, then absolutely it can change the thing. And it can change the outcome, because ultimately the judge is trying to decide what's in the best interest of the child. Yeah. So you need to tell your client, you need to tell your lawyer everything that there is so that they can be prepared even if you don't think the other side has it or knows about it, they still need to know so they at least have it in the back of their mind and have a plan if it comes out.
Yes, because you never know. Like you said, you could be good with someone until you're not.
Correct.
And then that someone is telling other people.
Right.
Or
you're good with their family, but not with the opposing party. But you're everybody's friends.
Yeah.
And then the other opposing party decides to take you to court, and then, family, sometimes family.
Yep.
I mean, I've seen it. Look, I'm not saying I've had a lot of family members testify against their own family members over the years.
Yeah.
But I've also had a lot of these mutual friendships among families, sometimes go south.
Exactly. So lesson to the listeners, tell your attorney everything, even if it's shameful or embarrassing or something you don't want anybody else to know in the world. That lawyer confidentiality is ironclad. Tell your lawyer.
Right. Because they need to be prepared if it does come out in the trial.
Absolutely. Okay. So number 3, is ignoring a court order really as big of a deal as people make it out to be?
Yes, it is a huge deal.
Okay. And
if you violate a court order and it's found that you willfully violated a court order, the court can and will put you in jail. And it's jail with the murderers and everybody else.
Yes,
so you could be just a regular person who's never gotten a speeding ticket and end up in the jail with some really bad people.
Yeah.
And I've had that happen many, many times where people did not follow the court's order and the court put them in jail. And so, the court orders are there for a reason, right? Yes. They create order in society. Why we have courts, right? All the way back to English common law, all that stuff. Yep. It's a way to create order. It's a way to govern society, right? And so if a court is entered an order, then the judge fully expects you to comply with the order. Now, does every judge put every violation in jail? No. Should they? I might if I was the judge, but I'm not the judge. So, I mean, I really have very little tolerance for people that don't follow court orders. It's clear. It's right there. You know what you need to do, and you need to just follow it. Yeah. And I don't care if the other side's not following it. We'll deal with that our own way. Yeah. But if you violate a court order, somebody can file a motion to show cause against you, and they're going to allege that you willfully violated this order in this way, and ask that you be punished. You can be fined. You can be ordered to pay attorney's fees. It could be grounds to modify a custody order. Yep. It could be the underlying basis for a motion to modify custody. It can be, and you can lose your freedom. Yep. And you lose your job. Yep. You get 30 days in jail. What job's going to be there when you come out? Yeah. And the judge doesn't really care. Yeah. What he wants or she wants is compliance with the court order. And, and that might be the only way to get it. Yeah. But tell you what, in my experience, when judges do put somebody in jail, we don't have any more problems with them. Whether it be my client or the other client, usually once those doors lock behind you, they get compliance real quick. Yeah. And I have argued with 26 years for judges to put more people in jail so we don't have as many show causes as we do. Yeah. So that we could get some people to follow these orders. It would make my job as a family law attorney much easier. But I've never been sitting there in that position as a judge, probably never will be. So I don't look at it the way they do. But I always thought, if you just give them 48 hours, we won't have to come back here anymore show causes because they'll get the message. Yep.
That reality really sets in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have family law questions? Need guidance to navigate legal challenges? The compassionate team at Breeden Law Office is here to help. Visit us at www.breedenfirm.com for practical advice, resources, or to book a consultation. Remember, when life gets messy, you don't have to face it alone.
So let me ask you this. What's the longest amount of jail time you've seen of a judge order?
I mean, if you get held in civil contempt, particularly if you're not paying your child support, I mean, you might be there for 3 months before they bring you back in to see whether they're going to let you out. Oh, wow. A lot of the ones in regular custody court, you get 30 days for contempt. And, and sometimes you can appeal it and get out. Sometimes you just do the 30 days, But yeah, I've seen 4 days. I've seen 48 hours. I've seen 30 days. I've seen 90 days in a child support situation. Yeah. And if you get found in civil contempt, it can kind of be somewhat indefinite depending on whether you're going to comply with the court's order or not, which is where you see child support. You're going to pay your child support, or you're going to pay what they're asking you to pay. Yeah. And there's different ways to get money to pay that. Like most people have a vehicle you could sell. I saw a judge.
Payday loans.
I saw a judge one time put somebody in jail for not paying child support, and he knew that the person had a truck because they had the child support agency had introduced the title, the DMV title to this truck, and his girlfriend was standing there crying. What are we going to do? We can't pay our bills. And he looked at her and said, he has this truck and CarMax is open. And
wow,
that's what the judge said. And
he's not wrong.
And he was not wrong. He absolutely was not wrong.
Yeah.
The man did have a truck and CarMax was open. So anyway, that was like 15 years ago. I'll never forget that. I was like, it's a good point. It's a really good point,
Can't
Judge.
really argue with that one.
Luckily, it wasn't my case, but it was a good point.
Okay, so, and just one last on that one. When they order like the 30 days, the 90 days, is it consecutive? Is it broken up? Is it, how does
No,
that
it's
work?
often you go right then and it's straight.
They take you immediately.
Right. They take you immediately straight from the courtroom.
Okay.
And it's rare that it gets broken up. It's too much paperwork and too hard for the sheriff's department to keep up with. With the new jail in Johnston County, it's a little easier because they're not overcrowded like they were in the old jail, but usually they just take you right then.
All right. Well,
just put the cuffs on you and out you go.
Good to know. Pay your child support.
Well, and follow court orders.
And follow court orders. Okay, number 4. So biggest topic in family law, aside from children, is usually money. And so do people really try to hide their assets?
Not very often.
Okay.
I think people think that that's a big thing. And in certain cases it is, but it is very rare.
Okay.
And I'm not saying never, because we always have at a firm this size.
Yes.
We're always going to have cases where it's happening, but it's probably less than 1 or 2% of the cases. I'm going to be honest. I think a lot of people come in here and think that, but they just don't know where their money went, and they don't want to realize that they just lived a lifestyle they couldn't afford, and there's just not money missing.
Yeah.
I'm being real. Like they just spent it.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, but as a general rule, we don't see that. What we do see is people taking money out of joint accounts and putting it into their own name account, which is, some people say that's hiding, but I'm going to get that back. I'm going to see it come out of the joint account and I'm going to trace it somewhere. Yeah. And you're going to have to turn it over. You have to give me all your bank statements and all this stuff. I'm going to be looking for this amount of money. Where did it go? Yeah. When was this other account opened? What happened with that account? That kind of stuff. Yeah. But it's rare. I'm not saying never.
Yeah.
And what we do see more than people trying to sort of hide it or squirrel it away is they just don't want to disclose it. And I guess that's kind of hiding, but it's not like they've moved it offshore or something. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they just
don't want the other person to know about
it. Right. They don't just want to disclose. They don't want to answer the discovery fully. They don't want to turn the documents over. They don't want our business evaluators to look at it, that kind of stuff. And then we have to fight real hard to get it. But usually we'll get it. It just extra work, extra time, extra money, that often our clients don't get their money back for. But, but you get some of that. But actually trying to squirrel it away is rare. But if you're in one of those 1 or 2 or 3% of the cases where it's happening, it's a really big deal. But it's not as common as everybody thinks.
Gotcha. So what are some assets you've seen people try to hide or not want to disclose? Or
they don't want to turn over, if they own a business, they don't want to turn over the business bank accounts. They don't want to turn over the business tax returns or the depreciation schedules. They'll want to not turn over, some of the bills of sale for some of the equipment in the business. They will not want to disclose all of their credit card statements because there's a credit card that somebody didn't know about that paid a lot of money for the mistress. You took some trips with a mistress and they just don't want that credit card disclosed. They're not asking the other side they're not claiming it as a marital debt. They're not asking the other side to pay it, but you have to disclose everything.
Yep.
And so, you run into some of that, and then people do seem to want to either intentionally, unintentionally, they do seem to commingle stuff with their parents.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so all of a sudden, this money ends up in an account and their parents' names on it, and parents are spending money out of it, and they're spending money out of it.
Yeah.
Whose money is it? And, we can figure it out, but, you run into some of that, and there's a whole lot of parents giving people money that all of a sudden when they separate becomes a loan, but there was never a document signed that said it was going to repay.
Yeah.
There were never repayment terms. There was never a repayment interest rate. But now that they're breaking up, it's a loan, and they're going to want the spouse whose parents it wasn't that was giving money to them to pay half of that back to the parents that if they stayed together would have never got married. We get into some of that, and I don't know if that's right or not, but I mean, these are things that we happen to see.
Yep. And so, like, one of the newer things, do you ever see anybody maybe not disclose or try to hide like crypto accounts or trading?
That is new and that's out there, but there's usually the money. People don't have a lot of sources of income, right?
Yeah.
So most people get a paycheck, so that money's going somewhere, right? So we can start with, where did the initial paycheck go? How much were they paid?
Yep.
Even if it was going into their separate bank account, we can usually sort of figure it out from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's harder to trace is cash, but most people don't have access to cash that didn't come from a paycheck. Now, if you own a business, I mean, it gets to be real interesting for people that own businesses, right? Because there you got income coming from a lot of different things. But most people are honest. I'm gonna be honest. Like, most people want to do the right thing. They want to move forward.
Yeah.
They're not the vast majority. I mean, we're still talking about a small percentage that may be trying to hide something. And look, and depending on when crypto is, I mean, people lose a lot of money in crypto. It doesn't always go up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been down.
It's
it goes
volatile.
up. Right.
Yeah.
So it's not always that it's a good thing that you have crypto because of how the volatility of it.
Exactly.
And in North Carolina, all assets, houses, crypto, all that are valued on the date that you divide them, not really on the date of separation. And so that becomes important as well, particularly when you're dealing with that volatile asset.
Absolutely. Okay, very last question. Co-parenting. Have you ever seen it get better with a case? Like maybe after somebody went to jail? Or have you seen it get worse? And then, like, what happened?
I mean, we've seen everything, right? I mean, we've seen a lot of co-parenting situations get better, especially after they've gone to court and there's a court order that defines what everybody's rights and responsibilities are and their roles and their visitation. I would say that the vast majority of cases, the co-parenting does get better once you get an order, and you don't have the dad having to negotiate every visit with the mom and the mom messing with the dad or whether they can see the kid based on nothing about what's best for the kid, just because the mom might be mad at the dad because he didn't pay a bill or he's dating somebody else or whatever. Like, that makes it very difficult often for the men in that situation when you have women that are not being fair and open and honest about things. And once they get that order and the dads now have the access and there's no more negotiating and everybody's on the same page, it often does get better the vast majority of the time. Now, co-parenting can also get worse, and that often tends to deal around new parties coming involved in the people's lives, whether it be new girlfriends or new boyfriends. And, it can also get worse sometimes when the child support number goes up and the person paying it is unhappy about that amount and would like to have the child more or full-time to lower that number or lower the amount that they would have to pay. But it really just depends. You know what I mean? Co-parenting is not easy, right? It's very difficult to do. I understand that. I do say, like I've said so many times in this podcast, try to think about it from the other side's position. Even if you don't like them or don't agree, try to consider it just not from yours. Try to consider what is actually best for the child in the situation, which is to have a loving, healthy relationship with both parents in its best way possible that those parents can be there for that child. I think that is extremely important. And, try to get along. And look, co-parenting apps help. Our Family Wizard is a great co-parenting app where everything is clear. Nothing can be deleted. It's clear when it's posted. It's clear when it's read. There's calendars and places to upload receipts and all of that stuff. Just be honest, I would say.
Yeah.
Be honest and clear in your communication. Yeah. Think about the other side. Think about what's best for the child. Don't try to relive why the relationship didn't work out, whether it was your fault, their fault. It doesn't matter. It's not probably getting back together. And rehashing those old fights that led to the separation do nothing to move the children forward now. And so that's what I try to tell people. Just focus on the child. You know what I mean? And if it's bad, communicate only as necessary. Communicate in writing. Use a parenting app like Our Family Wizard and get a court order that is very detailed and insist on it. You follow it and insist on the other side following. If they're not, start filing show causes to get their compliance.
Absolutely.
Back to the first question.
Absolutely. And, I would say be realistic, right? There's going to be one-off situations that come up that you might need to work with each other on to get one, two activities or whatnot. And, just be aware that that's probably going to happen at some point. Just be realistic and, set any expectations you have for the other party should also be applied to you. If you expect them to do A, B, and C, you should also do A, B, and C. So just across the board expectations and, just be realistic.
Sounds good to me. It sounds good to me. We'd like to thank Raina Birch for coming on and helping us with this special edition of the Best of Johnston County podcast that we call Ask Jonathan Breeden Anything. Like I said earlier, please follow, like, subscribe. Give us a 5-star review down below wherever you're seeing this podcast, YouTube, Spotify, X, any of those places, so you'll be made aware of future episode of the Best of Johnston County podcast. We do love for people to tag us in our Instagram stories, Best of Johnston County, and just tell your friends and neighbors. Share it with somebody. If you love this podcast as much as we love bringing it, and you love Johnston County as much as we do, share it with your neighbors and friends. Until next time, I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden.
That's the end of today's episode of Best of Johnston County, a show brought to you by the trusted team at Breeden Law Office. We thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to sharing more interesting facets of this community next week. Every story, every viewpoint adds another thread to the rich tapestry of Johnston County. If the legal aspects highlighted raise some questions, help is just around the corner at www.breedenfirm.com.